Listen, your live was powerful. Like I saw it and I just said we need to have this discussion because people don't realize that they have this self-hatred for America until
Hmm.
someone actually confronts them and says, "Bro, that's
Yeah.
some American hating rhetoric that you're spewing there." Like,
Hmm. It's okay to have criticism, but why are you kind of like making all your points through the lens of America being your personal enemy? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why? Why can't you
the
just make a
biggest
good point without connecting it to America always? I don't
the
know. You're
biggest
right with that.
point, the biggest point, Savory, check this out. The biggest point that man said was, the vast consensus of Russians love Putin. And I said, if they, and I said right on the other side of
Yeah.
the screen, here, check this out. I said, if they love Putin so much, why doesn't he have an election every 4 years like America does? Then
That's
you'll
true.
really
I
see, then you'll
should have
really
thought of
see how much
that.
they love him.
Yeah, they love Putin so much. 99%, yeah, he wouldn't be opposed to just regular elections. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He just
But
has a
no,
lot
he
of
strong arms it.
control. Yeah,
He
yeah,
strong arms it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's full
So
control, man.
there goes that Putin loving language. Again, listen, what's going on in over there, which we're gonna cover in future episode here, it has a bigger issue and it's a multifaceted issue. It's not just
Mhm.
one boogeyman here, guy. Okay, we need to stop it with the boogeyman rhetoric. We need to understand that everybody in the sandbox doesn't always share and doesn't always
Mhm.
play nice. So, just a little food for thought to you guys here. But how you doing? How you doing? You ready for today's discussion?
I'm ready to roll, man. I had an interesting live. I learned a few things, man. I'm gonna go dig tomorrow into some of this research. That's the way my mind works. Probably, go on a binge reading, some stuff with the IMF and all. So that's exciting. But I'm chilling, man. How you doing, bro? You good?
I'm doing good. I slept good these past couple of days. I've been very busy. I know, just for you guys who are tuning in, Savory made it very clear that we had to take it up a notch with our content.
Been doing
He had
just that,
he was
bro.
like, "Listen, you gotta work harder. You gotta." He's like, he's got the whip on me now. He's like, "Yo, you gotta work harder.
Gotta, gotta
You
make it
can't
happen.
slack. You gotta be on the grind." So I've been at work. I've been doing edits. I put out, guys. If you're here,
Definitely have,
check out
bro.
the short clips. We put out short clips on the channel.
Yeah,
We're
our
ready to
episodes are
roll.
30, 40 minutes, but if you want to see a short clip to get an idea of what we
Some
do, Macho
highlights.
just put out more than a handful, I think, right out there.
So
So
after
that's
every
good. Yeah,
episode thereafter, I'm gonna be putting on those short clips. So
dope,
so
dope.
the we do this for the people, Savory. We
We
do
do it. That's what
this
we do, man.
for the people. So I'm excited. I'm hyped. I'm ready to roll. Let's get right into this. All right, let's do this. We're wait. Before we move to our intro, we have to get this infused, right? We are two Latinos from the inner city who talk about culture and politics over a drink.
Come join us as we tackle decades of lies through this podcast. Holla at us.
Just a quick glimpse here. Look at this thing.
Ooh,
Build
build
back better.
back better.
Looks a lot like MAGA, if you ask me.
That joy looks identical. Same campaign. Maybe
Literally
they
the
best
same
friends.
talking points, right? They're
Crazy,
up to
crazy.
something.
Yeah, Macho.
Go ahead, shoot for
Today's
it.
episode is Stop Hating America, right? And we're doing this because I think you saw it in my live, but I think we see it on each other's lives, right? There's a rhetoric around this idea that not only that you have a critique against America, that's okay, right? But you have a set of talking points that all go back to why America caused all those problems, right? Am I correct in characterizing this?
Everything, it's like all roads lead to London. Everything leads back to America as
Yeah,
a source
you answered
problem
my
with the
question
world.
perfectly, and that's a big
So
problem,
so
man.
here's the dramatic rhetoric that we hear, that we don't really hear of in the hood, by the way, just so everybody is aware, right? No one's talking like this in the hood. Maybe a little bit more so now that our education system has definitely transitioned its rhetoric. But the dramatic thought process is white people ruin America, right?
Mhm,
And America ruined the world. It's always gonna rule. It's always gonna come back to that. Capitalism ruins the world. America
mhm.
was taken
Unfortunately,
over by white
unfortunately,
people. Never
yeah.
mind all the other layers that that are associated with that. But it's okay. Everything, just blame America. Everything will be solved.
All roads lead to America's default problem. That's crazy. It's
Facts.
like it's
Facts.
like a circular argument. But
And how
I
does
want to
this
start
even?
off.
And how does this, brother? For our inner city talks, how does this
Mhm.
affect the kid growing up in the inner city?
Man, that's a beautiful question before we get into this clip because I'm gonna answer that question directly. You know how, man? It just gives you a dim view of the future of yourself and of place you live in, right? Having no pride in your country, man, it's called demoralization in war, right? When the people are demoralized, they don't believe in themselves, they lose wars, right? It's called just hopelessness. Without hope, you can't really do much, right? You don't go out and get a job, you get depressed. So they're building an idea around
Self-loathing,
this that it's almost like, hey, this country's going down the drain. It's not helping me, and there's no point in
and there's
kind
no
of
vested
really
interest for me
doing
to
this.
even want to make this better, right? There is no vested interest. That rhetoric builds a propaganda warrior, right? So that's why we are diametrically opposed to that, right? We're about,
Thousand
hey,
percent.
there are mistakes that happen. There are bad people in America. There are bad people in the world, but there are also, hello, there are good people in America, right?
Yep, yep.
We have to figure it out. We have to grow through the growing pains. We have to sift through the noise and go through the mud. We have to go through the trenches. Teddy Roosevelt says the man in arena speech, right? We don't
Hmm.
criticize the people outside the arena. We criticize the people in the arena. We're in there. We're in the
Hmm.
trenches, right? So
Exactly.
that's what we if you're watching us here at Drinks with a Nobody, we just love to have a drink and talk about culture and politics. But again, we don't want to build propaganda warriors. We want a community, not a cult. So
Hmm.
we all want
Which is
ourselves to think for ourselves in this discussion.
for sure, which is why we fight against this idea of what's being pushed against America because it's not a real logical, practical kind of system people want to build. And I want to show with this first clip some of what I mean by that. So let me play this, and you'll see where I'm going with this, Macho.
For some reason, the sound's out. Then I'm sure we're missing some meat here, probably.
Sound is out. Let's get
The
this
sound
back
is
and running right
down.
quick.
Are you sharing the window or are you sharing the screen? The actual link.
Let's see really quick. I'm
If you
sharing the
share
window actually.
Yeah, share the
Can you
actual
hear it?
link. No. If you share the link, we'll hear the link. That's the weird thing. So you have to, yep.
You're saying the tab?
Yeah, if we share the tab, we'll hear it. The problem is when you
Let's
share the window, it won't know to hear it. So to broadcast the sound. And I'm sure there's some meat because it's Jordan Peterson, so
there's
he's
some heat in here,
he's
man.
got some heat going on here,
Can
Political
you hear
probably.
system
this?
is that
Yep.
it's not predicated.
All right, cool. So let's run this back really quick. 5
Hey
seconds.
DJ, run that back.
And let's play this.
Let's expand that
But
video.
somehow harm gets done.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things I really like about the American political system is that it's not predicated on a utopian ideal. The founders of the American system Of course, they were basically English, but the founders of the American system said, okay, well, you can't trust people to do the right thing. It doesn't mean they're all bad, but you can't assume that they're going to do the utopian thing. That isn't what people are like, and they tend to take care of themselves first, and maybe that's okay, and maybe it's not, but it has to be bounded. But given what we know about the imperfection of individuals and societies, let's try to build a system that no idiot can screw up too badly.
Yeah.
And I think
That was
that's
the
so
essence.
mature, man.
And that's key
Ooh,
there,
I
right?
like
It's not a
that.
perfect system, but think about it. We created a system where no matter how bad you think Trump was, no matter how bad you think Obama was, we still here, thriving,
Yeah.
alive and well, right?
Yeah.
So let me finish
And
these
I
few
like
seconds
I
here.
like
Man, it's
I like that we're opening with this because it's gonna lead to some rhetoric that is infused and ingrained in our society, like
Mhm.
the Chris Hedges and the Noam Chomskys that we're going to broadcast today.
For
This is a
sure.
great starting point to lead us to that discussion.
Exactly.
it's so psychologically informed and so wise. It's like, no, we're not aiming for the utopia. We'll aim for not too murderous. How about that?
Right, and that's the thing, because humans are the flaw in the utopian system, right? I mean, you can't create utopia because we're part of it, and we're not perfect.
Well, and
so
that-
the idea of the perfect system created by an imperfect creature, us, it actually doesn't even stand to reason.
Yeah, well, and you can't
So
also blame our
let's
imperfections on
pause
the
that.
This is
imperfect
finishing
social
right here. This is
structure, which is,
finishing.
of course, what the Marxists tend to do, because it doesn't help. It's like, okay, the social structure is imperfect. Well, who produced that? It just pushes the question
Right.
back.
So
Yeah, just wanted to take it home with that, but go ahead, Macho.
this is why I love what they're talking about, because when we create a social construct, right,
Mhm.
it could sound perfect in theory, but ideally it's got to get worked out by us, the imperfect beings in that perfect social construct, right?
Exactly.
So did they account for that or whatever, whatnot? See, we're going to get
You
into
can't, because it's arrogance, right? When people want to push, there's a sense of they can do it better, they can do it well. And the history, right, of the millions of people dying, right? It's not that they didn't implement it well, they just didn't understand it well. You are better than them, and you can just run an entire system better. That's why it's
yeah,
arrogance, Macho.
absolute arrogance, and that's why we have to caution and we have to pump the brakes. This is why I don't want an echo chamber, right, Savory? Me and you, we don't want
Mhm.
an echo chamber. It's okay. A lot of people on other social media outlets think, oh, you guys block who don't agree with you. No, we block people who are arrogant, who don't want to have the
Exactly.
conversation to understand. I might not know this. One thing that I really admire about you, Savory, is that you're willing to say, I'm not sure if I know all of this, but I don't agree with where it's going. Right.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah.
it's like you're using intuition along with reasonable thought, right?
Mhm.
You're mixing it together where you say, I hear what you're saying and it sounds good,
I just
but I
gotta
don't agree
process
with
that a
it,
bit more.
despite the fact that I don't really know full on where I stand.
Mhm.
Check out this guy here, and we're gonna dive into this whole idea of people who hate America
Mm.
and they cloak that hatred towards America with quote unquote accountability. Check this out.
Listen, don't take this the wrong way, but you sound like a left-wing nut bar.
If you want to discuss news, that's fine. But, I mean, this sounds like Fox News, and I don't go on Fox News.
In his new book, Wages of Rebellion, Chris looks at how revolution has changed countries and society since the 17th century, and argues that America is next.
So that's Chris Hedges, right? And I apologize for the lag. Everybody, it's internet technology today. But that's Chris Hedges there, and let me just rewind it back just to introduce our audience to who this person is. This is
Oh,
Chris
perfect. Yep.
Hedges, and before we get into the next video clip, I just want to introduce that Chris Hedges is a Pulitzer winner. He was a he won a Pulitzer Prize for explanatory reporting. He worked for New York Times, Savory, and was fired after 15 years, or he walked out because of an internal conflict on how to report on the Iraq War. He was one of the the first critics of going into the war in Iraq, right? The war in the Middle East. He's an activist. He was one of he was highly acclaimed for the Yugoslavia wars, right? When he covered that, he's covered
Mm.
so many different types of things
So,
around the
so he's
world.
been around
This
with
guy
these
is
political issues.
prestigious, and here's another thing. Here's another thing. He is a Presbyterian minister in a way, right? And he worked for Princeton University. This guy is the
He has a
intellectual
resume.
elite. This guy's an intellectual elite. Okay. I mean, we're talking about a serious intellectual elite. He's also an anti-war guy. He's an anti-war guy. So let's get into this next clip that we have that I have here. That me and Savory were when we watched this, we were like, wait a second. Wait a second. So let's get into that real quick. Any thoughts before we get into that? Just immediately before I transition to that video. What do you
No,
think?
yeah. I think the audience. We're going into Chris Hedges here more.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is gonna speak for
And,
itself.
and a more and
You
a
set
more
the stage well, Macho. Yeah.
in a more specific way. There's the specific book he wrote that even a
Mhm.
Canadian commentator had some questions that were like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So you guys get an idea of where this guy stands. Let's check this out.
Chris Hedges is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who, over the past decade and a half, has made his name as a columnist, activist, and author. He's been a vociferous public critic of presidents on both sides of the American political spectrum, and his latest book, America, The Farewell Tour, is nothing short of a full-throated throttling of the political, social, and cultural
Final
state
tour.
of his country.
Final
And with that,
farewell.
we welcome Chris Hedges back to TVO. It's so nice to see you in that
He's
chair.
retiring.
You know, I sort of
The way he says it, like the final farewell, like the farewell tour, like he nuances this, right? This is really savvy. This is really creative in a way to make or romanticize destruction. This is a way to
Yeah.
romanticize destruction.
It also it gives him room to kind of like be in that gray area, right? Because farewell tour is an analogy to many things. You can, as a scapegoat to describe it in many ways.
Oh.
But this is interesting. Yeah, I see how he gets into this.
Hedges lives in the gray. He acclaims himself to be a part, separate from the norm, societal norm, and that's how he builds
here
his
we go.
credibility. That's his niche. That's why he's a multimillionaire, right? That's his niche.
jokingly said to you in the green room before we started, having read your book, I don't know whether to kill myself today or wait till tomorrow.
Right, but I said you're Canadian, so,
we don't
imagine being an American.
This is the most depressing look at your country I think I've ever read. And if I can just be permitted sort of an observation on
This is the most depressing outlook on your country that I've ever read. See, that is really remarkable that he felt compelled to have to mention that, because it's like, dude, why are you looking upon your country in such a destructive way? Check this out.
the top, and then you tell me if I'm totally out to lunch here. After reading this, I thought Chris Hedges sees the same problems in America that I heard from Donald Trump at the Republican convention, where he described widespread carnage and mass unemployment and drug problems and so many things bad with America. Your prescriptions, obviously, for fixing all of that are different. But do you two essentially see the country the same way in that regard?
No, because it's important that while he will run down some of the pathologies that have gripped huge sections of the country, he blames them on undocumented workers, on liberals, on Muslims, on Mexicans,
So Macho.
He's a classic con artist or a demagogue.
Yeah, go ahead.
How can you be such an intellectual, right? But then revert back to the talking points of just things that don't have any kind of intellectual ground, right? Like, because that has no that's like me saying, that's the same thing.
Because he's
Me
fusing
saying
personal.
Obama hates this kind of people. Obama just ran down the country. I'm like, yeah, but you can't use these terms,
Great
these
question.
broad terms, right? Because we can do that with both parties. So you're an intellectual, but you're repeating what millions of people on a daily basis are seeing. And
Why are
hearing
they
on CNN.
repeating it? Why are they repeating it?
People like this man.
This guy is the reason. He is the source, right? If you're not paying attention, if you're not keeping, why is CNN spewing out this rhetoric? Why? These are the editors behind the scene. These are the guys who influence the mainstream, right? This guy in that Vice clip that I showed you previously to everybody watching, he
Mm-hmm.
was talking about how he influenced the what was it, the Wall Street, the Occupy Wall Street. This guy
Mm-hmm.
was the biggest proponent to that. Mind you, he teaches in an elite institution, right? So
Yeah.
what is he
Crazy, crazy,
doing?
crazy.
Stimulating that kind of rhetoric. Again, he is destructive.
Yeah.
He
Think about
calls
that,
this
people, as we play this.
accountability. He
What
calls
are
it,
like? Think about that.
this is American self-hatred cloaked in accountability. Oh no, no,
Mm-hmm.
we're just being accountable. And remember, I'm outside of political. No, you have personal political opinions, which is
Mm-hmm.
why you're saying the things you're saying,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. His personal bias to paint objective false truth. He's lying about this. Go ahead.
Which is okay. Look, at least, but don't cloak it as you being an outsider, an outlier. Don't cloak it. Just say your political bias, say where you really stand, and hey, and let me make the decision for myself. But they're
Mm-hmm.
not confident for that. They're not
Yeah.
that confident.
But you do raise an important point. He tapped into
Here we
the
go.
deep despair and rage that large segments, in particular the white working class, feels at having been betrayed by both of the major parties.
Well, let's get into it then. You call this a farewell tour. A farewell to what?
A farewell to the American empire, to America as we know it.
And is that a good thing? Because I've heard some people say, you know, a farewell to American empire will be a good thing for this world.
Wow.
It depends how the empire dissolves.
You
It
see,
depends
this guy got to be.
what our
So
man,
you
you
want
gotta
to
be
bring
paying this
see
man.
this is purely hold on.
Oh,
See,
man. Gray
you
area
write-
again.
You
They
write the
challenged him, by the
statement.
way, Macho. This is his gray area. It depends, yeah, because he doesn't want
Right.
to flat out say, "I hate America and I want to destroy it."
You're making a bold statement as saying this is the farewell tour. So now you're being challenged. This commentator is actually confronting him a bit. He's saying, okay, farewell
Mhm.
would be a benefit to the world. I want to see where you stand when I made that claim. He's saying, well, no. See, so all he's trying to do, guys, is he's trying to stimulate a conversation. He knows that information is chaos. He knows that it would make
Mhm.
people uncomfortable. He knows that it will disrupt that complacency.
Yeah.
in
He knows the
society.
effects of this. Yeah, he knows.
He's the antithesis. He's like the opposite, or he is the Socrates to society,
Mhm.
to Roman Empire society, right? He is that
Mhm.
Socrates, that danger mechanism. The only difference is America is not shallow or soft to deal with a person like this, right? We've
Exactly.
overcome worse. We've had worse intellectual thinkers like W.E.B. Du Bois, like Margaret Staggart, right?
He's in that category.
We've had worse people, nefarious people than this, and we've recovered actually quite nicely.
reaction is. I mean, empire,
here we
when it
go.
contracts, and it will contract very quickly once the dollar is no longer the world's reserve currency, can express itself in some very frightening forms. So, for instance, the British Empire, in essence, it was a slow collapse from the end of World War I, culminating with the Suez Crisis.
$1 million question comes
right,
now.
the abortive attempt to retake the Suez
Ask him
Canal.
the $1 million
after it was
question,
nationalized.
please.
They had to retreat in humiliation, largely because of Eisenhower's opposition. And then the pound sterling was dropped. And so they fell into a pretty significant depression, but they handled it in a different way. What happens in the United States, we're not prepared at all. Our
most prepared,
democratic,
bro.
social, and cultural institutions are deeply decayed. We are also a very violent society in a way that, for instance, Canada is not, or in the way that Great Britain is not. We are awash in weapons, and not just weapons.
Ask my man a
but
good
these
question
are,
right
in
now,
essence, These AK-14, and not AK, the AR-14s that are used in
AR-14s, I peeped that.
these mass shootings in schools and concert venues and
Look at his face.
malls and are assault
Malls.
weapons. They're not for hunting.
Assault
and they're
weapons.
easily
What's assault
accessible.
weapons,
So,
bro? By the way, pause
I
there. You
worry
see,
that
this how you know this guy is just BS. You know,
You
people
can't
who
take
use
it.
terms assault weapons. Literally, you've never shot a gun, right?
He
assault
probably
weapon is
never
like
shot a
what?
gun,
Like that literally comes from this media sensationalizing these kind of events. Assault weapon, right? AR. People don't even know what the AR is. People don't know what like assault weapon could be categorized any kind of gun. Anyways, let's just make
I don't
this last
get
point going
blinded
to
by
there.
this rhetoric. You know why? Because we
Yes.
have the right to bear arms. I don't care about that rhetoric. I don't care about what you're saying. Well, because we have mass shootings in the schools. It's a psychological issue. And when you have people like Chris Hedges of the world who are ingraining to the young person, like we open in our opening, right?
Mhm.
If you have a destructive mindset, if you have a self-hatred, a self-loathing, a victimization, guess what? The young people growing up, especially the minority in the inner city, why should they contribute to society? Why should they even care?
For
Why
sure,
should
for
they?
sure.
It's better to be and easier to be destructive than to be constructive, right?
Which is
Think
a good question here we're about to go into, right? Because
Uh, the disintegration of empire will exacerbate the kinds of dark pathologies that I spend a lot of time in the book writing about.
The UK farewell tour, as you've described it, took about 40 years. How long has the
Yeah.
American farewell tour been going for?
Well, there's been a steady decline.
all
I
right, you
would
see
say,
now
since-
gymnastic, mental
wait,
gymnastic
wait,
again.
wait. This
You
is
can't answer that.
this is the mental judo, the word judo that you were talking about that Obama was really savvy about, right?
Yeah, this is it right here. He's doing it. Look, they asked him a
So
fair, direct question. You want to do farewells? Okay, this took 40 years. So what are you doing? He doesn't want to answer that because he's just painting a dim picture for people to buy into, for people to feel a certain way, for the media to
to
run with.
buy his book, to buy it.
Exactly.
the early 70s when we
Look at this
shifted,
BS
in
answer.
the words of the Harvard historian Charles Mayer, from an
Oh,
empire
here we go.
of
Go quote
production
somebody and go
to an
quote somebody
empire
from Harvard.
of consumption. So we began to borrow to maintain both an empire and a lifestyle we could no longer afford. Those began the distortions,
God, a whole bunch of things
accelerated
that just sound good.
under
Like,
Reagan.
what, bro?
The
He hates
Reagan.
Reagan too.
cannibalizing,
He hates
that's when the
Reagan.
cannibalizing of the federal government began on behalf of
Cannibalizing
corporations at
of
the
the
expense of
federal
the
government.
citizenry.
Hear
You
my
know, the
man's
famous
language?
phrase, government is not the solution, government is the problem. Well, that's true if you're Goldman Sachs or ExxonMobil,
No,
but
it's
it's not
not.
true if you're a single mother trying to
Yo,
raise...
what?
Hold on,
Yo,
hold on. Say, check this out. Check this out, though. Look at what he said. This is a very smart man, right? But this is how you got to. This is how he's got to pull on the heartstrings. Check this out.
to raise children on a substandard wage or no wage.
So the corporation it's true for the corporation to hate our government, but not for the single mother that has to raise a child.
Yeah,
And
not for
no,
them.
she loves and depends on the government. This is the problem. I'm glad he said what he said. One, corporations need and supposed to hate the government. Why? One thing that people misconstrue on our lives that we talk on TikTok, people misconstrue and think the politicians are at the beck and call of corporations. One antitrust, one legislation, one taxation literally puts a corporation on its head. So who is at the beck and call of who? The corporation is at the beck and call of the politician. I'm sorry. The politician has more control because they
Facts.
have legislative power, they have access to legalese, they can go to court, they can take these corporations up, they can change the law right on them. Okay? So at the end of the day, the corporations hate the government, and that's why they want less government interference. And we should be, I'm glad he also said the snippet about the single parent. The single parent should not be depending on the government. It should be a collective of people, a partnership that depends on each other, not the government.
Exactly. 100%. You know what I caught from this as well, Macho. I'm gonna tell you what. That he's avoiding logical, conclusive conversation, which means let's have a conversation that we can actually all meet somewhere. No, he just wants to paint a broad picture of a dim reality in America, right? So let me show. Go ahead.
And I had a question for you before we play this next clip. Remember, I asked you off air: is why would America not suffer the same kind of collapse as we've seen in history? What would prevent America from collapsing in the same way that we've ever seen? Have we ever witnessed? The world has witnessed. We're talking about empires just fall, crumble,
Yeah.
absolutely be shattered, right? Why would America not suffer the same fate?
Yeah, we spoke about it beforehand. It's a simple thing but deep thing, all right? It's our constitution, right? So that constitution gives us that hope, right? And it doesn't guarantee us the freedom, but it gives us the fighting chance. Some countries,
It
man, when they go through
changes.
stuff, doesn't give you no fighting chance, man.
It's the people who wrote that document. Remember, we are the most diverse country in the world, and that
Hmm.
document was written by so many different type of ethnicities you wouldn't even understand it. We even have Native
Facts.
Americans say that Constitution is even Native law.
Exactly.
Constitution, it represents so many things. The
No, it
Constitution,
changed a lot.
black intellectuals, black conservatives have even sworn
Hmm.
by the Constitution, have lived by the Constitution. Again, the
Yeah, yeah.
Constitution is what's going to prevent America's collapse. You mark our words. Go ahead, Sable.
Facts.
Ron Paul, the founder of the internet. What's the guy? The guy that
Al
hurt Bush
Gore?
and is out. Not Al Gore.
Ross Perot?
Ross Perot.
Yeah.
Let's get the next Ross Perot true believer, a shamat type of guy, a person like that's like screw Republicans, screw Democrats. I'm an independent. I'm a real independent that can make sense. That's a salesperson that can get you to say this makes sense. Like you're saying, Rand Paul doesn't. He's so intellectual that he can't speak the language of the average person. Believe it or not.
You hear that? By the way, according to the video we just saw, so intellectual, but what you're really doing is you're using your intellectuality to not connect with the people and think for the people, right? This is why this is very manipulative. So I love what he said here because it's really connected to what you just showed us, Macho. So again, I want people to listen to that really quick, right? It's key.
He can't speak the language of the average person. Believe it.
And he can't even explain it to a child.
He can't speak the language of the average person. Believe it or not,
Check
I
this
think
out.
there's going to be some positive happening from some of these socialists because they're
Check
not
this take
for
out,
big
Macho.
pharma. And if you have to look at enemies, like if you sit there right now and make list of enemies, like concerns, like if you sit there and you got I don't know if you guys got kids or no kids yet.
One kid.
One kid, really? How?
Hartley, 2 years old.
That's the name of her book.
Dear Hartley.
Dear
That's
Hartley,
right. Dear
that's
Hartley,
my
yeah.
baby.
Who are you writing down over there? You wrote an enemy down, I feel.
years
No,
old.
I wrote a little note for myself. He's
It's
too
fantastic.
perceptive. He's
So,
too perceptive.
I got a 9'8", 5, and a 6.5-month-old baby.
Oh my God,
right?
how are you not exhausted?
Vampire
my
blood,
eyes
right?
top 10 enemies. Like you're raising kids, and you say, "Who are the enemies of me raising kids?" Well, what school am I going to put them? Teachers, like weird things you think as a enemy of a kid.
Trying to fast
a
forward to the
teacher,
third party.
a friend, holding them accountable. Is when both sides kind of team up and say, you know
we go.
what? No, it took you 5 cents to make this. $10,000 is just too much abuse. And all these health insurance costs, you guys keep increasing. I have a lot of employees. Every year I'm paying more health insurance, and I have the friction with the employee. Well, my health insurance is going up. I'm like, dude, I didn't increase your health insurance 30%. This is what's increasing the health insurance. I think there are certain things that those two sides can disrupt big pharma. I don't know. Maybe I had too much Sudafed this morning. I don't know what.
So Macho, what's your thought on a third party, right? Challenging
I like
both
that.
parties and coming out with kind of like a place where it forces both parties to reevaluate a bit. Do you think that would be
I
a good idea
wanted
for the
that
country?
segment, that clip there that he gave that illustration of the squad. Can you find that while I give my feedback? Here?
Yeah, I was trying to find that, but yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna find it, but keep going. Yeah, I
So
lost that
so
exact place, yeah.
basically, so I like what he's talking about here because again, it's like a enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So at the end of the day, if you guys are against the big pharmas of the world, the big things, or big government, right? Or if you're like, oh, you know what, we want to actually be for the people, well, then maybe the AOCs of the world is actually going in the directions of conservatism, right? Because we believe in, or even libertarians, everybody in the middle. Because what happens is if everybody in the middle, like Pat Ben David mentions, the 12% of the country actually runs the country in terms of our elections. They determine the fate of our elections, right? So maybe this will be the breaking point that when people start to come together, they'll actually realize their similarities rather than their differences. They'll come together and say, listen, big government's the problem, right? Yeah. Okay. Government trying to solve this is the problem, right? Yeah. You against big pharma? Yeah, we are too. You're against big government? We are too. right? And so once we start to
Exactly.
come together on those things, we'll start to realize that we have more in common than we don't, right?
Facts. And I don't know if this is the exact clip, but this is an idea of where he's going here, right?
Is sick and tired of these Democrats that are getting in the way.
I
And I
agree
think
with
AOC is convinced they're never going to buy in to what she's bought into, ever. And I think AOC is eventually going to sit there and say, you know what? I'm loud enough. I got a bigger mic. I get more likes. I get more eyeballs. I have more followers. I got the younger audience. You don't. I'm sexier. I'm more attractive. I talk better. I speak better. And I'm a true believer. And I'm going to get these guys to be convinced we need a third party. So what's the third party? A third party, say, Democratic Socialist Party comes out. Let's just say. I'm just throwing this out there.
Yeah.
Speculation, right? I think
Here it is.
where
I think it is
that
here.
12% of America wants to go to, that I think America is run by 12%. I don't think America is run by anything else but the 12%.
In the middle. You
Pause
mean
it right
I
here.
think
Pause it
12%
right here.
runs America. I think all
We
the
have
other
to,
guys
we
are
have
just
to
wasting.
break this up every now and
Yeah,
then.
let
so
me
just to
let
keep that
me
in
let me
mind.
let me break this down to people really quick, right? So the logic here that he's bringing up is you have a percentage of the country that votes left, another percentage that votes right. In the middle, and these statistics have been showing this for decades, in the middle, you always have the 10 to 12% who are truly independent, who have actually voted any direction and really like sway elections, right? These are the people
It's
who went from like for example, when Trump won, it wasn't like millions of new. It was people, those middle people who weren't too sure about Hillary. Some stayed home, and then the rest also voted for Trump. They were the ones that, but there's some people who will vote for Hillary no matter what. Some people who will vote for Trump no matter what. This 12% shifts the country, he argues.
Wasting time. 12% of America runs America, period. It's a 12% that was like, you know what, I don't know about Trump. Let me go over here. It's the 12% that said, you know, I don't know about Obama. Let's go to Trump. It's the 12%. The 12% runs
In the Rust Belt,
Everybody else is
typically.
just talking.
Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin,
Everybody's
Indiana.
talking. 12% is the one that runs the country. I think if it gets to the tipping point where these guys are eventually sitting there having a strategy session,
this
because I
out.
think the four, you know, what did he call the four?
Check this out,
the
guys.
four girls. What's the squad?
Squad.
The
I
squad.
think if those guys are sitting behind closed doors and saying, hey, girls,
You know the squad, right?
oh yeah,
You know the squad. Y'all know the squad, right? That's AOC. That's
Ileana
who's
Omar,
Ilhan Omar, you know, like
Gretchen Whitmore,
yeah,
the other
exactly.
Palestine woman. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So his idea is, look, he's not with these ideologies, but if they make it, how can it help the country? He's describing how very provocative thought here.
you know what? Let's do it. Let's go. Let's go all out. Here's what we should do. Now, you're shaking your head.
No, I see where you're going with this.
I'm telling you right now, I actually think that's good for America. I actually think it's good for America if some of those guys go and some of the people from the right go, because I think
Bring
the
in some
left-
thoughts in the
What do you
chat,
say,
man.
right?
I want to know what y'all
the
think
right-
about this.
From the right, they're like, screw this. I want to be a libertarian. I'm going to go independent. Let's push. Let's actually bank on bringing a Ron Paul, not a Ron Paul, the founder of the internet. What's the guy? The guy that
Al
hurt Bush
Gore?
and is out, not Al Gore.
Ross Perot?
Ross Perot.
Yeah.
Let's get the
So Savory, here's the difference between him and Chris Hedges. Y'all want to know what the difference is? Chris Hedges is an idealist.
Mm-hmm.
Pat Ben David is a realist. What you just saw there was bringing it down. You could explain
True
that to a child.
solutions.
You can explain that to a
True
child. very
common
easily.
sense.
He literally is like, listen, look, I'm not about the destructive of criticism or breaking it down. But here's what I think. I think strategy. They're gonna get tired of this. People who are gonna be in this pool, in this realm, they're gonna get tired of this. They're gonna create this, right? They were
Mhm.
even talking about creating a Trumplican party, right? A Trump
Got
party,
that.
a MAGA party. So again,
Mhm.
people get upset with certain kinds of status quo in society, and it takes somebody to cause that disruption, to cause that ripple effect. Think about it. Think about it.
Mhm.
Trump started this. Trump started this.
Yeah,
So
that's a great point.
it becomes now a real strategy session. What Pap and David did there is what Chris Hedges could never do because he doesn't understand how to apply his
He
principles.
doesn't want
in
to,
real
right?
life.
'Cause he's not living this. He's not in the ground. He doesn't understand the country. He just understands ideology. These people just understand theory. These people are disconnected from reality, right?
But-
And
ooh.
this is what I want to do with this, right?
Ooh.
For Sip on Facts, right?
Hold
want
on,
to
before
leave
we get
people.
there,
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
have something I just remembered here, Say, if we don't mind.
Oh, go ahead. Let's
But
do
there
it.
is also, with this whole idealist versus realist, there are people in the middle making decisions that I wanna kind of talk about, guys. That there's a saving grace. There are still people making enough noise to change the status quo. I don't want it as a permanent solution, but check out what the lieutenant governor of Texas is.
These professors, this small group, are paid to educate, not indoctrinate.
Patrick's announcement is in response to a resolution UT Austin's faculty panel passed on Monday, stating their right to teach about race and other complex topics.
This is really part of a larger culture wars argument.
UT government professor Eric McDaniel has closely followed the politicization of CRT and has also discussed it with his students.
Getting rid of studying critical race theory is problematic because critical race theory is not perfect, but it's an idea that's out there. It's one of the things we discuss, we try to figure out.
As a tenured professor, McDaniel worries this political fight could have larger consequences for the state.
And you should be worried, Mr. McDaniel. You should be worried because what Lieutenant Governor is doing, Savory, really quickly to catch our audience up, is he wants to end the tenurency, meaning new professors coming into to work at universities no longer will get tenure so easily, and or get it so substantially to the point where when they get it, they're there and they won't get reviewed for a certain amount of times. They will be reviewed every single year, meaning peer reviewed. Make sure that they're staying on task. Make sure that they're able to be checked and also have that back door open so that they lose their tenure, that they're not just arrogant and saying, hey, I could teach whatever I want. We've been witnessing a lot of professors in this country going rogue, like the Chris Hedges, right? Like the Noam Chomskys, who we're about to end with Sip on Facts. There's a saving grace. Do I want government to be the permanent solution to this? No. I want our education system to still be free to teach. However, what the governor said is they're to teach education, not indoctrinate.
Exactly. And then, I want to share this with people as well as we go into this last clip here. We have to be very wary of people who have no criticism about America in an honest way or have all criticism and blame America in an honest way. Unfortunately, the latter is happening more often where people are trying to blame everything on America for every single criticism and critique they have, right? They can't objectively think about it. They just want to always bring it back to America's problem.
Where I was born, but this country welcomed me with open arms and gave me an incredible life. And to compare it to where I was raised at, I mean, the worst day in America is still 10 times better than the best day in Iran. So that's what I mean, where maybe for you had some kind of a love for the country that, gave you the opportunity to become.
The country didn't give you the opportunity. Certain people within the country gave you the opportunity while preventing others, victims of our own crimes, from having that opportunity. They gave you the opportunity because you were a refugee from a country that was an official enemy. Okay, that's what they did. Take me, my parents.
So check so check the undertone out there. Oh yes, America helped you, but remember they helped you while hurting this person. Oh yeah, no, America helped. Oh no, you don't love
somebody else.
Yeah, you're pushing it because you don't want to sit there and say, oh wow, okay, America is a pretty good country for this. Oh, it's a bad country in this aspect. It's a great country. You can't have an honest conversation because a lot of intellectuals, right, that we played today and we ended with Chomsky are always going to revert back to an intellectual, right, argument that says, look, no matter what you bring to me, it's not really America. No matter what you say, it's not really that it's good. No matter what story I give you, no matter what statistic I show you. And these are people we have to be extremely wary about. Why? Because they take the soul out of you. They take the light out of you because they are making it seem like this country, it's not about critique. Macho and I could handle critique of America. We have our own critiques. The problem is people are not honest, and they want to kind of just talk about that in the sense of doomsday next year, right? And that's a problem, man.
Yeah, and then just to wrap this up, guys, listen, Savory just cut it off, but watch the rest of that clip. Papa and David interviews Noam Chomsky. He literally compares the fact that that America allowed some Jewish people into America and not others is the reason why Hitler was able to put 6 million Jews into gas chambers. That kind of thinking is so warped. We cannot have a good faith conversation after that. I'm sorry. It's just so
I'll put
egregious.
the link.
It's so
I'll put the
inappropriate.
YouTube link in the chat right now. Those of y'all still in here, click on that. It's a 8-minute snippet of the entire interview, but it will give you a good idea where Chomsky stands and the questions that Bet David asking. Everybody, thank you for joining. Thank you for sticking to the end. I appreciate y'all. Much love, man.